I'm going to talk to you about photography, eventually getting to the future, but by starting in the past, and actually starting with a painting. You may recognize this one as one by Renoir. It's a portrait of Christine Leroll made in about 1895, and Christine was the daughter of one of Renoir's patrons. Interestingly, right around the same time, Edgar Degas, famous painter of the ballet and a friend of Renoir, started messing around with photography, obsessively making images like this one at salon evenings. This is, in fact, the exact same young woman, Christine Leroll, age 16 on the left, with her sister Yvonne in the center. All of a sudden, with Degas' unvarnished photograph of Christine and Yvonne, we've eradicated what the hallmark of painted portraiture, an upgrade. Instead of Christine's rosy cheeks, we see what she really looked like. And herein is the nugget of the dilemma and the power of photography. Its veracity, seeming veracity, its immediacy, its accessibility, upon its arrival in 1839, caused panic, excitement, but also panic, leading to ominous statements like, "From this day forward, painting is dead." It would take about another 100 years for photography to shake its bad reputation, its second-class status, to become a fine art. And what I want to do today is kind of toggle back and forth through the history to show you, to set up a framework for some ideas I have about photography, where it's been and where it's going. It may surprise you that a medium that's known for its infinite reproducibility started out as a unique object, the daguerreotype. And here we have two images that are 161 years apart, an early self-portrait by Robert Cornelius and contemporary painter Chuck Close's daguerreotype in the early 2000s. The daguerreotype was small. You could hold it in your hand. It was encased in a velvet-lined, slim box. It was intimate. It was precious. The photography, in its rush towards democratization and proliferation, moved very quickly out of that mode to the tintype. Did you know it was the first instant photograph? And it was patented right here in Central Ohio. The tintype was durable. It was cheap. It could withstand the mail. And in the Civil War, it reached its height of popularity. For the very first time, you could take a picture, a photograph of your loved one to the battlefield or leave one behind. Here we have Ada and Inman, whose tintypes of each other in the movie Cold Mountain, based on the book, sustained them. We had emotion and reality coming together in a palpable, tangible way. Tintypes were so ubiquitous that even a guinea pig could have its portrait made. And when a guinea pig can have its portrait made, anything can happen. In 1888, George Eastman founds the Kodak Company with the ambition to make cameras as convenient as pencils. The Brownie in 1900 furthers photography's mass appeal and affordability. In its first year, 100,000 were produced, and they cost $1 a piece. Technology didn't stand still just because everyone could now make a photograph, and everyone did. A major contribution comes from engineer Harold Edgerton, who ran a lab at MIT beginning in the 1930s. And for all you Buckeyes out there, yes? A lot of Buckeyes? Oh, okay. I'm a New Yorker, so, but I'm a Buckeye. We have Wes Fessler's cleat kicking the football way back in 1934. And 30 years later, a more famous picture by Harold Edgerton. So just like the guinea pig, what we hadn't pictured before, we now did. What we hadn't seen, literally, what we couldn't see with Edgerton's high-speed experiments in photography, we now could. Interestingly, photography takes a detour and goes back to its roots as a unique object with the iconic Polaroid. like the daguerreotype, it's a one-off. You may all have pictures like this in your photo albums, and you may remember those 60 seconds of anticipation as that image emerged, that magic. And for those of you too young to remember, we have Instagram, the new kid on the block, which cleverly taps into that nostalgia with one of its 18 filters called 1977. I don't think it's a coincidence that 1977 was Polaroid's biggest year, with over $1 billion in sales. What's almost as photographed as pets? Babies and sunsets. Might want to hold back on that. This is Sophie Kahn, Philippe Kahn's newborn daughter. It was the first ever mobile photograph made in 1997. And he sent it to 2,000 contacts worldwide, ushering in a seismic shift in picture making and sharing. And just recently, earlier this year, Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion. It seems to be the sort of going rate. Instagram created this nostalgia, and what we see in its proliferation is what Nick Carone, who might be here today, has called the happy hour of photography. Another young man who might be here today, Josh Hara, quips, "Give a man a fish, and he eats for a day. Give a man an Instagram account, and he has a cool-looking picture of that fish forever." I think when we know about photography all along, it's kind of fake authority. Oh, I think I'm still on. And none other than the great thinkers Calvin and Hobbes have opined on that. This is what I like about photography. People think cameras always tell the truth. They think the camera is a dispassionate machine that records only facts. But really, cameras lie all the time. Select the facts and you manipulate the truth. For example, I've cleared off this corner of my bed. Take a picture of me here, crop out all the mess, so it looks like I keep my room tidy. Hobbes, is this even legal? Wait, let me comb my hair and put on a tie. So keeping their insights in mind, today I want to just point out some ideas that I think are intrinsic to the medium, whether in the history, in the film, in digital, or in the post-digital future. I believe that these words are always going to be with us. And the takeaway today, I hope, for you is to think about them maybe as you participate in photography in whatever way you do. Connection, currency, choice, consequence, and context. We've seen some examples already, tintypes connecting sweethearts or Polaroid's unique currency, but I want to just run through a few more, going back into Alexander Gardner's photographs of Antietam in 1862. He worked for Matthew Brady, the most famous Civil War photographer, and when these photographs were first shown in New York City, they caused immense shock. For the first time, Americans literally could see the brutalities of the war on their soil. It forever changed, and these were posted on Slate recently, the way we felt about war. That abstract disconnect was no longer possible with these kinds of pictures. A more recent example is a photograph that stopped me in my tracks when I first saw it in 2008. It's by Todd Heisler. It appeared in the Times in a book review of Jim Sheeler's Final Salute. And I wonder for how many of us have had that experience lately of being, just seeing something, a photograph that stands apart. For me, it was certainly the content. This is the undertold story of our current conflicts. But there's more. It's the way the picture is constructed, the decisions the photographers made along the way, The 8 windows along the top like thumbprints, with passengers peering out in various degrees of awareness of what's going on in the cargo hold beneath. The coffin of Second Lieutenant James Caffey descending onto the conveyor belt to be received by his family. The nose of the jet engine like a stubby finger pointing directly at that flag-draped coffin with its vertical stripes in opposition to the horizontals of the plane, creating a literal bifurcation through the image, separating the passengers from the action below. Currency. 2 photographs, 2 kitchens, both made in 1936. The one on the right by Walker Evans, who was making pictures under the auspices of Roosevelt's New Deal initiative, the Farm Security Administration, his rural interior in Hale County, Alabama, and on the left, an unknown photographer in Leningrad, then Leningrad, of a shiny, gleamy, modern kitchen that was the symbol and the promise of communism. So 2 pictures of the same subject, and this comes from a great show and book called Propaganda and Dreams that the Corcoran Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. organized some years ago, with very different outcomes. These photographs depend on an intent. They depend on how they were disseminated, and their meaning is in how they were received. That's one way to think about currency. The most famous picture of the Great Depression, also made in 1936. I will get out of this 1936 thing eventually, but it was a big year, of Dorothea Lange's Migrant Mother. It was made in California. The subject is 32 years old. How does choice play a role in this photograph? I think we can see from the 5 images that came before, Lange starts out quite far back, and we're reading these images from left to right in terms of the progression. So you see the tent of the migrant family, maybe 4, even 5 children. And as she moves through, she gets closer in, and the specifics fade away. And what emerges is a picture of universal motherhood. I just want to mention that before this picture became known as Migrant Mother, its description was rather descriptive and different. It was Migrant Mother, 7 children, destitute, because the early pea crop in California was a failure. It morphed to Migrant Mother over many years, and how different the message would be if any one of those earlier pictures had been chosen instead of this one. Just like the Great Depression, photography has shaped our collective memory of World War II. Here we have 2 pictures by Walter Rosenblum. He was a combat photographer. Part of his unit landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day. On the left, the soldier is straddling dead center, his fallen comrade, and bodies are strewn about against a churning sea. On the lower right, an unfamiliar picture, haunting, just as difficult, the young German prisoners of war. The photograph was made the same day, but not chosen. Together, these 2 pictures tell a story that neither one alone can manage. Also involved with the Photo League, Mason Klein, a curator at the Jewish Museum, and I have worked many years on a project about this merry band of photographers who felt that photography could affect social change. They were in New York and took to the streets to reveal the issues of the day. But who could imagine that pictures like this by Rosalie Gwathmey, Sid Grossman, and Jerry Liebling could have had such a perceived threat that the FBI would hire informants to infiltrate and spy on them, eventually causing its demise. What were unintended consequences, these are the unintended consequences. In fact, it's exactly what happened. In 1947, the League was blacklisted by Attorney General Tom C. Clark, McCarthy's Attorney General. And we know from some research by Lisa Davis that there were several well-paid informants, but here in the redacted files from the FBI, they're only referenced as T1, T2, and T3. But the pictures were tough. By 1951, the League had been shut down thanks to the testimony of Angela Calamiris. So what was going on with these pictures? I saw this a few years ago, and again, really puzzled by it. Context becomes essential. In the series that we know Vivian Cherry took in East Harlem, we see the picture that came before, boys tugging at the play victim from the previous slide. And from a third picture, we know that the victim, the play victim, was interchangeably black or white. This is a game of lynching. The last multiple lynching in America took place in 1946, maybe just months before this picture, caused national outrage. Current events, we know, cause profound ripple effects. We know about cops and robbers. We know about war games that come from the headlines. But before I'd seen these pictures, I had never heard of a game of lynching. And what about choice and context for this girl? Who is she? Could it be a school portrait? In fact, she's one of 14,200 people who were held at S21 during Khmer Rouge's reign of genocide between 1975 and 79. She was, like all of the people there, were executed, and only 7 survived. Without this picture, and we have these pictures because 2 photojournalists discovered the negatives at S21, the secret prison, and printed them, we would have never known what this person looked like. Photography here becomes a part of our collective story. Excuse me. But back to now. Finally, we get to now. Where will photography go? I think it's not too far from where it's been. An innovative, nimble technology, always pushing the envelope. One that creates a still picture, not a moving picture. And just like our Instagram fish, fugitive, yet permanent. I'm going to wrap up with just a few slides from contemporary artists. Paul Shambroom here, Minneapolis-based. He is showing us the impact of an ANFO explosive on a 1987 Honda at a testing site with no collateral damage. Can't help but think of the thousands of casualties caused by similar explosives in Iraq and Afghanistan. And yet, despite its subject, it kind of looks like a Jackson Pollock drip painting. Lala Asadi, Moroccan-born, takes us to a place of isolation in her childhood where she's challenging cultural taboos. In these pictures, she's working with henna, writing in calligraphy, which was once a sacred art form reserved only for men. And finally, ending with a bang, is Ori Gersh from Tel Aviv's exploding vase of flowers called Blow Up. It's one of many on view at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston right now. This mesmerizing, seductive piece reminds us of old master still life paintings, and yet it's rooted in the artist's experience growing up in a war-torn country. So, context, currency, connection, consequence, all of these things feed into where we are and where we're going. Let's try something. Do you have your phones? All right. Take a picture. Take a picture of your neighbor. Take a picture of the chair in front of you, the ceiling, your shoes. You choose. But do it quickly. I'm running out of time. All right. Let's think about that picture. Will you delete it? Will you share it? Will you tag it TEDxColumbus? I hope these words will help you to think about what to do next. Thank you.